we've realized that they are privy to conservation of the wetland, so as to address these key issues, especially matters to do with biodiversity and also issues to do with climate change, which is very, very critical. What we've realized is that we are here doing analysis so that we identify the gaps and then come up with the recommendations so that we bridge the gaps and create a healthy coexistence between development and also environmental conservation, which will strike a balance today. One thing we've realized is that community lack capacity, especially on capacity strengthening, on matters to do with ecological agriculture, matters to do with climate smart agriculture, and also on how we need to fully tap the blue economy, which is very, very critical when you're addressing matters to do with wetlands. We definitely understand that wetlands conservation is critical when we are addressing issues to do with climate change, because wetlands are major carbon sequestrators. And we agreed as a team that we'll conserve the wetlands as one key area on climate change mitigation, adaptation, and also disaster risk reduction, which is very, very critical. The other key thing that we've come us together is that we have to be custodian of the environment as enshrined in Article 42 of the Constitution. That as much as we have a right to a clean and safe environment, but we also have an obligation as communities, and that is why we are coming together as a team. That as much as the project is going on, key thing that has to stand out is that we need to conserve also the wetland for the benefit of us today and also the future generation that are coming.
Yeah, converting a wetland into an agricultural field has two phases of it. One, it affects the habitat of cranes, because that is where they breed. They use the reeds to establish their nest and raise their chicks there, as well as providing an area where they can feed. So when we convert it into an agricultural field, we are denying a habitat for breeding. However, it will convert this into a modified system, which is agriculture or agricultural farms that will now turn to be a feeding ground for the cranes. So it is converted, one, destroying the breeding habitat, but now it will create another link of cranes using the farmlands as their feeding grounds, which is two-way faceted. It will because it will affect the population negatively, because for a healthy population we need to see an increase, and an increase is through breeding. So if we lose the breeding grounds, then we are affecting the population. So if the Ondago wetland is converted into purely an agricultural field, then the cranes will be affected enormously, because they will lack a breeding area. And even the agriculture can be the farmers can decide to use pesticides or anything that can endanger the lives of the breeding cranes that stay there. Conservation is not a single person's work, but it requires a collaborative engagement, and each and every person has a role to play. Cranes are important in the ecosystem. They are keystone species, and they are indicator species of wetland health. So whenever we see them in our wetlands, it indicates that that environment is good, and so that is why we need to conserve them. And being endangered, we need to understand that it has been listed as endangered in the red list of species because of its status in terms of population, which has declined quite drastically over the past years. And over the 4 decades, we've seen an 80% decline in the species. And so this calls for all of us to reduce the threats that face this species, so that we can realize its importance, as well as realize the importance of other wildlife that it attracts in the environment that is thriving and safe for all of them. In Homa Bay County, we've conducted 2 census, which was done in 2019, and it showed that in Homa Bay County we had around 805 individuals of grey-crowned crane. In 2023 we also conducted another census, and it indicated 364 individuals in Homa Bay. There is a decline in the population. However, this can be attributed to several factors, such as movement within and outside of the county, and also other factors such as food availability that can influence the population distribution. However, with the with our engagement with the communities and engaging with different projects on the ground, we think that the population will stabilize because of the awareness that we are creating to the people around here and reducing the threat of especially illegal removal of cranes, chicks and eggs from the wild. We want to call on to the communities and everyone saying that cranes are endangered and they are protected under the law, the Wildlife Conservation and Management Act, and no one is supposed to be having them or either in domestication, for consumption or for whatever reason. They are protected species that require both community buy-in as custodians of wildlife and also the duty bearers to conserve the species for its importance.